Okay, can everybody hear me? Because you all leave when I open up my presentation.
You're good, Jen.
Okay, so I don't know what that means. Okay, so as Chris said, sorry, something popped up on my screen. So this is my first time actually presenting via WebEx, and I've been basically behind the scenes for other talks. So my name is Jen Sawyer. I'm the Ag and Natural Resources Program Associate for Commercial Agriculture, and I, I'm also in charge of the horticultural helpline here at the Cooperative Extension of Gateway County. I'm going to be going kind of quick and brief through growing basil and lettuces from seed. So as you have questions, please just put them in the chat box, and then I'll be talking for about 10 minutes, and then we'll take about 5 minutes or so to go through questions. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about basil. The photo you see here is of a sweet basil variety, which is pretty much what you find when you buy fresh basil at farm stands and in the grocery stores. So basil can be easily started from seed. You can buy established plants. A lot of the local farms and nurseries sell very nice plants, different varieties. You can, you want to pinch back your leaves and you'll get a bushier plant. It'll have more leaf production. And another tip is to snip any of the flower spikes. That will slow the seed production. Because once the plant goes into seed production, it pretty much stops putting its energy into growing leaves. And if it's a nice healthy plant and your pot's not too heavy, you can bring them inside for year-round use. So growing requirements for growing basil. The soil likes a pH range between 6.0 and 7.0. They like well-drained soil. So any good potting mix is good. They don't like wet feet, is how we like to put it. You don't want a lot of moisture sitting around the roots that can lead to root rot problems. You can grow them in pots. You can grow them in the ground, raised beds, pretty much in anything. Their water requirements, it's best to water them at the base of the plant, so you're getting everything right down into the root area. Basil is highly susceptible to downy mildew, so you really want to try to keep any extra moisture off the leaves. And you want to keep them evenly watered, especially during some really hot spells. And if you have them in pots, you'll probably be watering them at least once a day, possibly twice, depending on the size of the pot and how hot it gets. Basil likes full sun, and by full sun, like no shade, 6, 7, 8 hours, as many hours a day of sunlight as possible. Basil also likes hotter weather, so basil should be starting to thrive if you've got some already at home. Days like today are the days that it flourishes. And then by midsummer, they should be going gangbusters. Now, when you're deciding which kind of basil that you want to grow, there are so many varieties. I mean, just crazy amounts. There are new things every year, but the biggest things you want to look at, choose disease-resistant varieties. The basil downy mildew in particular and powdery mildew will decimate your basil plant within a few days. So especially if you're planning out to either buy plants or all that energy growing from seed, it's awful. I always feel bad. I hate losing plants to disease. So there are lots of disease-resistant varieties, and just check your catalogs pretty well. Ask at the nurseries if you're buying plants. And also flavor. Do you like the sweet basil, which is typical in Italian cooking, or do you like Thai basil? Those are all options. So some of the varieties that I'm going to mention, actually, they're usually commercially grown, but they are, most, if not all, are available for the home grower to purchase seeds from. So popular varieties for fresh market, so these would be ones that you would buy either hydroponically grown plants or fresh cut herbs. So there's the Genovese, which is your classic sweet basil variety, but it is also highly susceptible to basil downy mildew and powdery mildew. I've lost entire plots to that. So there's the Napolitano, which is a standard, more of a lettuce leaf, so not that typical basil leaf that you're used to looking at. Romanesco, which is a larger leaf with a pretty strong basil scent. Dolly is known for its heavy production of large leaves, and it's a little more cold tolerant. So that might be one that you might be able to kind of continue growing into the fall as it goes on. And then there's the Italian large leaf, or Di Genova, classic large leaf type. It's a little bit sweeter than the Genovese. Okay. So there, I thought I took that out. So there are some that are distinctive flavors or aromas. These are typically grown by commercial growers for restaurants and kind of niche markets. There are certain ethnic markets that they're looking for specific flavors for their cuisine. Cinnamon basil have a cinnamon taste and aroma. There are citrus basils. There's lemon. There's lime. There's a lemon lime. I think there's also an orange basil. There's a clove that has like a spicy scent. Thai basils. If you like anise, or if you cook a lot of Thai food, Thai basil is the way to go. There's quite a number of varieties of that as well. The good thing about Thai basil is it's not nearly as susceptible to the mildew diseases as the sweet basil. Purple ruffles has a slight clove scent. Dark opal and just has a beautiful, brilliant purple color. And then there's holy basil, which is sweet and a bit spicy. The Rutgers breeding program has actually been working on, I'm going to say it's been about 10 years, if give or take, on some sweet basil varieties, and they've been bred for basil downy mildew resistance, and all 4 varieties are available. I put the website up there. It will tell you, if you go to that website, which seed companies have seed for sale. I'm not sure if it has anything for plants for sale. Most of the places that do grow starter plants, they're growing for commercial growers and greenhouses. But there's Devotion, which I have grown. It grows really well. I grew it last year for the first time and had no problem with the downy mildew, which had decimated our crop the year before when we were just using a Genovese. Obsession, Thunderstruck, and the Passion. So the DMR just means that it's downy mildew resistant. And you can find out more about the particulars of these sweet basils. Some look traditional. There's one that has more of a kind of serrated leaf. Okay. So when you're planting, now's a good time. Basil can pretty much start at any point. You can keep it growing outside through September and October if you really keep ahead of the seed spikes. Keep it a little sheltered from the cold. If it looks like the temperature's going to drop quite a bit at night, you can throw a light cover over it, like an old bed sheet. Works wonders. Just have to remember to take it off in the morning when the sun's up. And you can bring them inside and try to keep them going inside throughout the winter. You just want to remember that they like a lot of light, and you want to keep them in a warm spot and keep them well and evenly watered. Okay, so growing lettuces, pretty much very similar to growing basil. They can be started from seed. You can buy established plants. You can extend the growth of your spring lettuces with a shade cloth. You can use simple pieces of old screen to give the shade, give just enough shade to keep the plants cool. You can bring them inside if you have them in pots. The problem right now is it's a bit late now to start growing lettuces as it's getting hot. So once the temperatures start staying up in like the mid 70s and up into the 80s and not dropping down real cool at night, the lettuces will start to go to seed, which is called bolting. And once they go to seed and start producing that seed spike and the seed head, the leaves can get very, very bitter. So you want to try to start them early. They'll do well in the garden um, in the cooler spring temperatures. And then in late August, you can start more plants and have them outside and keep them going into the fall. Sometimes you can even overwinter them with some simple coverings. So again, as with basil and lettuces, there are so many varieties out there. It really depends on any favorites that you may have. There are loose leaf varieties. The picture there, the lighter green is called salad bowl, and the darker reddish is called red sails. These don't form a real head of lettuce. Loose leaves tend to also be called cut and come again lettuces, where you can just pick leaves as you need them. You can also harvest most of the plant by cutting it with shears or a sharp knife, but by leaving 3 or 4 inches of the base, and it will continue to put leaf growth for a bit longer in the season. Then you have your head lettuces, like the romaine, which is pictured there, or iceberg. Some of uh, the butter lettuces are head lettuces. Now they take a lot longer their growing is a little bit longer than your loose leaves till the head is formed pretty well. And then at that point, you're harvesting the whole plant. So that head lettuces are good for succession planting. You can start, 3 or 4 plants, and then every like 10 to 14 days start one more, and then you'll have a longer, more continual harvest. Growing requirements, the soil pH range should be 6 to 6.5. Again, well-drained soil can be grown in pots or out in the ground. You want to water at the base. You want to keep them evenly watered. Lettuce on hot spells, will wilt rather readily. They like full sun in the early spring, and then you can shade them a bit into the early summer to help keep them from bolting. The Rutgers fact sheets that I use to get this information. Now they are geared towards commercial growers, but all of the information is, whether you're growing one plant or thousands, the information is the same. And that is my email address. So if anybody has questions, email me. We're checking emails every day. That's the best way to get a hold of me, and I can send you information and answer your questions. Okay, so if you just bear with me a second, I'm going to close this out and then we'll do questions.
Jen, can you see the questions?
Hold on 1 second. No.
Okay, so there's a question. How do you check the pH of your soil?
Okay, so we do have pH meters at our office. So when our office is open, we can accept samples and do pH testing for you. It's $5 per test per sample. Or, it's a $5 test per sample, and it takes me about an hour to run that. You can also get soil pH testing kits at any of the big box stores. They may not be as accurate. But unless if you're using fresh pots, for the most part, those are all pretty neutral pH range, and I shouldn't say neutral, in that 6 to 7 pH range.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for Jen? All good. Okay, I'm going to switch over to my presentation then. We both wanted to just do a little bit so we didn't overwhelm everybody.
And then, if you have questions about the growing stuff, again, email me. I'm happy to help. If you have trouble with fact sheets on the Rutgers publications site, I can email you the PDFs.
Okay, Jen, do you have my slide in the picture? You see my slides? Okay, thanks. Okay, so I'm Chris Zellers, and Jen and I decided when we were still working from the office all the time to do this collaborative effort of working together to bring you how to grow and the good news of nutrition behind growing your own food. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do this in person, but we are trying to make this a series. So hopefully at some point we will be able to do that. But for right now, we're doing it remotely. Thankfully, we can do this. So bear with me as we go through and try to figure everything out. It's my first time doing polling on my own, so we'll see how that goes. And my department, Jen's department covers A&R, covers the agriculture portion of it, and I do wellness and nutrition and fitness. So, I think coupled together, it's a good combination. I want to remind you, I know I got everybody that signed in as an county employee, but if you have not done that yet, go ahead and do it, and then I'll check again when I'm done. So then that way, you can sign in again or sign in if you have not. Jen, what are you telling me? Do I need to do something, Jen? I'm good. Okay. I saw something pop. It's hard to see what's popping and talk at the same time.
I was getting a bunch of, they were asking for notation, and I just kept hitting no. There was something
Okay.
for, it wanted to say poll questions, but I don't know why.
Okay, that might be coming up. Okay, cool. Thanks. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about eating what you grow with basil and lettuce, and I'm going to talk about the nutrition portion of that. And the objective, now I'm not forwarding. All right, there we go. The objectives for my talk tonight are the health benefits of using fresh herbs, basil and how to preserve those basil things, and health benefits of lettuce. So like Jen said, it is pretty easy to grow. I'm having a lot of success right now with lettuce. I think it's our climate this year with the damp and cool for such a long time, especially in the evenings. But that picture in the right corner is one of my little herb gardens that I have going on my porch. So I try to grow it that way on the porch to keep it from the bunnies. One of the things that I wanted to make sure to share with everybody to start with is the difference between herbs and spices. They're used interchangeably a lot when cooking, and people say, spices, I'm going to use the spices when they're really herbs. So I just wanted to point out, generally speaking, herbs are grown in more temperate climates. So climates like ours, ones that are cool, and sometimes of the year they're cold, sometimes warm, sometimes hot. But then the spices are grown primarily in tropical climates. So that's a little bit of a difference with them. The other difference with herbs versus spices is herbs are the leaf of the plant. So for instance, basil is an herb because we eat the leaf of that plant. And spices are more non-leafy parts of the plant, like the root, bark, berry, flowers, or seed. So that's the difference between the two of them. And examples of herbs are basil that we're talking about tonight. There's dill, rosemary, sage, thyme, cilantro, parsley, and oregano. Again, all leafy. You can see in the center there, that's my crazy oregano. It's just been going. So that's we eat the leafy part of that. And then examples of spices would be coriander, cinnamon, pepper, allspice, cumin, and vanilla. And a nice thing to remember about the herb versus spices is that when you think about cilantro, so cilantro is the leaf part or the herb, and then the spice part of the same plant is coriander, which is the seeds. So that it's the same plant, but it's just a different part of the plant. So I like to use that example so people understand the differences. So that's the 411 on herbs and spices, herbs. So why is it good for you to eat herbs? So first thing I'm going to tell you, and you're probably going to scratch your head a little bit, is herbs aren't really a significant form of nutritional value. Now, obviously they're a leafy green, so they have some nutritional value. And basil in particular does have some nutritional value. It has antioxidants, vitamin K, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and it does have dietary fiber. But you're not eating a bowl full of basil. So you're not getting a big nutritional value out of that. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. I know it's kind of odd that a nutrition person would first thing tell you it's not a significant form of nutritional value. But one of the things that herbs do is they add color and flavor to your food. So that's important. You know, we can make a dish look really nice, which is nice. And again, it boosts our flavor for us. Herbs are low in calories, they're low in fat and sodium, and they don't have any cholesterol. So that makes them pretty healthy as an option to add for flavor as well. So why are we even going to bother with herbs if they don't have any nutritional value? And the simple fact is that herbs are a really good replacement for sodium or salt, which is essentially the same thing, just a different name. So we're going to talk tonight about how you can use herbs to replace the sodium. And at this point, I am going to stop and I'm going to try to do a poll. Let's see if this works here. Break up the monotony a little bit. It's not giving me. There we go. All right. So it looks like we might have had the poll open for a little bit already. Here we go. So if you want to answer the first question, it says, I currently use herbs. And the second one is, you currently use herbs and where you use it. So go ahead and answer that. This gives me an idea when I'm talking, you know, what your usage is and how you've been dealing with things. About 15 seconds left to answer the poll. Oh, still waiting. It's going to let a couple more answer in 13 seconds. All right, the polling has ended. So it looks like, let's see. I don't know if I can share this with you on this one. It's easier on Zoom. All right, it looks like we got a lot of answers. And here we go. Let's see, is it sharing it with you? Jen, can you see the results? No. Okay, sorry. All right, well, it was an experiment. It looks like probably about 17 out of 29 people do use them currently. And it looks like we're using a lot of them in sauces is how we use herbs. Not too much in red meat, some chicken dishes and some fish here and there. And some people are using basil.
Yeah, I can see them now.
Oh, you can. So you can see the results now? Okay. I can't see the results, so.
Yeah. I had to close my participants list and reopen the polling, and it shows everything.
Okay, perfect. All right. So now we're going to keep moving on and see how we progress with this. Did it go away? All right. So let's talk a little bit about salt. And, you know, that's my main reason for the talk tonight is I wanted to give you an option to use herbs and why to use them. So when you look at a label, a nutrition label, salt is going to be labeled as sodium. So you can look at it and it gives the measurement in milligrams. And we know that too much salt or too much sodium is not good for us because it causes heart disease, it can cause stroke, it can contribute to high blood pressure and even calcium losses. It's also bad for our kidneys. It's not good stuff for our kidneys. So they're a good reason to try to cut back on our salt. And as a country, we eat a lot of packaged and processed foods. So that means we have high amounts of sodium in our diets as Americans. The USDA's recommended daily allowance for adults is 2,300 milligrams, which is about the equivalent of 1 teaspoon. But we, on average, are eating or consuming much more. So, on average, the average American gets about 3,400 milligrams or 1.5 teaspoons in every day. So you table that up, and we're really accumulating a lot of extra salt in our diets. Salt can, you feel the water retention. I know sometimes if I eat out and I get something that's really salty, aside from tasting it's really salty, you can feel yourself retaining water and whatnot. So it's not always good for us to have that, and it does contribute to those chronic diseases. So one of the things that you want to be cautious of is if you already have high blood pressure, you already have heart disease, or doctors recommended such, you should watch how much salt you're getting, and you should make sure it's under 2,300 milligrams, because 2,300 milligrams really is supposed to be the top. And if you're already having issues, then you want to cut that back. We do need salt, though. We need about 500 milligrams a day, and salt helps to conduct nerve impulses in our body. It helps to balance out the water and the minerals, and it helps us to contract and relax our muscles. So it is important. It does have a function, but when we get too much of it, it has a function that's not so good for us. So one of the other things I wanted to mention, because I get this question all the time when I'm talking about salt and sodium, is the difference between sea salt and table salt. And I figured I would touch on that just to cover it. The difference is one comes from the sea, it's obviously sea salt, and then mostly table salt is mined from land. So you might see Himalayan salt that's pink, or you might see Pakistani salt that's mined in Himalayas or in Pakistan. They have a color to them. A lot of sea salt will have a color to them, and the colors kind of vary depending on where they come from. The sea salt and the table salt is exactly the same. It's salt. So if you measure a teaspoon of sea salt and a teaspoon of table salt, it has the same amount. It's the same. The difference is the way it's processed. So table salt is very processed, and they take everything out of it, strip it down. Sea salt is not as processed, and there might be trace amounts of metal in them. Not that makes it bad, but it's just not as processed. So that does leave behind some things. And if you're going to eat one or the other, sometimes sea salt's a little bit thicker or bigger pieces, so you might eat less, but you want to make sure that you do eat less if you're using that, because it's the bigger pieces. So just keep that in mind. You're not really doing yourself a favor by eating sea salt necessarily, unless you just want less processed food. As far as the sodium goes, it is equivalent. Okay. All right, so we're going to use herbs to cut sodium. Jen, I think, hold on 1 second. Can you mute, Jen, everybody again?
No, I can't.
Okay, let me see if I can do it. I can't. Okay. All right. So herbs provide us with less salt, and that's a good thing. So if you can use an herb and replace and get great flavor, and so you still have a little bit of nutritional value, but you're not doing the detriment to yourself that the salt could be doing, and you're cutting things back. It's important. One of the things I used to do an activity with when I went out to group settings, I would have the people pour what they would normally pour, like on a meal, and then measure that back into a tablespoon or a teaspoon, and let them see how much they add. So as you're thinking about what you're doing with your food, try not to add it when you're cooking, and try not to add salt when you're eating. If you can top it with basil, or you can top it with another herb that will give it flavor, that's important. As we age, our taste buds start to not be as effective. So that makes us desire more salt for the flavor. So if you can replace that flavor with something that is a little bit healthier for you and not detrimental, that's a good way to go. So most herbs are salt free. I will amend that only by saying that parsley flakes do have sodium in them, and it's probably enough that you will see it on a label. So that is one that has a little bit, but it's not very significant, but it's still less obviously than dumping a bunch of salt on. In general, dried herbs are stronger than fresh herbs, and powdered herbs are stronger than dried herbs. So that's just to keep in mind. You want to avoid when you're adding herbs to something to eat, flavoring a sauce or something like that. Make sure you don't put too heavy herbs, too heavy flavored herbs with each other, because they're going to overpower each other. So you want to try to do a lighter flavored one with a heavier flavored one. So keep that in mind when cooking. Also, if you're not sure, you think the recipe might be too heavy on an herb, like you're not a really big oregano person, for instance, so you think, oh, that might be too much oregano in that sauce. Separate the sauce in half, pour the measurement into half of it, taste it, and see if you like it that way. And if you do, then you can add it to the other half. But if you don't, you can just add the sauce back in, and it's going to dilute that flavor a little bit. So that's just a little trick that you can use in case you think you might have a little issue with being too much. And also be mindful of when you add the herbs to your dishes. So for instance, when you're cooking with basil, it has a tendency to burn if you put it into things too quickly or wilt. It's a little fragile on those leaves, as Jen mentioned in her talk, and how it grows. So what you want to do is maybe add it at the end and follow the recipe for whatever the directions are on that, so you don't get it too wilted. And then finally, the conversions from powdered to dried to fresh herbs. So if you have a 1/4 teaspoon of powdered herb, that is equal to about 3/4 to a teaspoon of dried crumbled herbs. And then that would then in turn be equal to 2 to 3 teaspoons of fresh herbs. So that's just something, you know, if you run out of, I know sometimes I'll be cooking and it'll say use fresh, this fresh or this dried, and I don't have one or the other. So if you need to substitute, that's the measurements to be able to do that with. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about preserving your herbs. And I know at the end of the season, sometimes there's an abundance of things. And like Jen said, you can bring the basil inside. I've tried to do that, and it just, for some reason, it doesn't like the climate in my house, I guess. And I don't do very well with it. So what I do is I try to make a, like freeze them or dry them or do something with them. So this is an ice cube tray that I purchased in the center. I think it was $1. And I make pesto with it. And then I put the pesto, as you can see on the right, into the little ice cube trays, lay them flat in the freezer and allow them to freeze. And then I take them out of the ice cube tray and put them in a Ziploc bag. And I seal the Ziploc bag, and you can keep them in there, you know, all winter long, basically. And if, you know, I'm looking for a quick, fast meal, I'll grill up a piece of chicken with a little garlic, put one of those cubes on top and some mozzarella cheese, let it melt in the oven, and it makes a really quick, easy dinner, especially, you know, when you're looking for something fast. So you can use the pesto that way. You can also just chop up the basil finely and add a little bit of olive oil to that, and then you can pull them out as you need them that way as well. So that's just a trick to preserve them a little bit. And this is the basil recipe, which I will send out to everybody after the discussion tonight. So if you're interested in that and how to put it into the ice cube tray. So I have that for you. This is another example of how to dry the herbs. So you can see there on the left that if you get a paper bag and you punch some holes into that, and then you put the basil leaf down and then stem up to the end that's open and tie it off, you can hang it in your house somewhere where it's cool and dry, and that'll allow it to dry out. And then you can use the flakes over the winter in a sealed jar, you seal the jar in a cool place as well. And also if any seeds or anything fall off from any of the herbs, then you can gather those up. And it makes for less mess. You want to make sure you do it this way so you don't get dust on it. You can also microwave herbs to dry them, but it's a little tricky because they can catch fire. So you have to be really cautious about how you do it and keep a really good eye on them. The center is an electric dryer, and you can see there, it looks like they have some rosemary on there. Can everybody mute themselves, please? And on the electric dryer, you can use that, but they have a cost to them. So if you have a cost to the electric dryer versus the bag's a heck of a lot cheaper to go ahead and use that. And then, okay, hold on one second.
I put a little fence around one of the tomato plants. I need to do the.
I just wanted to go in and meet everybody.
There's a couple that are still open.
Are there? Okay, let me try them. Got them? Okay. So like I was saying, the electric dryer is a little bit more expensive if you're just like trying it out. If it's something you really get into, then it's great. I think they run like in the $100 mark for those electric dryers, but the bag is really cheap, and you can do that at any time with all the herbs. And then on the right, you can also do, instead of using the ice cube tray, you can put them in little Ziploc bags and freeze them that way and pull them out one at a time. So these are just some ideas to continue the use of herbs and have them all year round, so you have that ability to substitute the salt for fresh herbs. All right, so finally, we have learned that herbs provide a tasty addition to your meals, and they're great to try that way. They're low calorie, low fat, and low sodium. If you grow them yourself, you're getting some exercise in the garden. I always have to put the little exercise promo in there. So it's a good way to get exercise. Herbs are a great salt substitute, so you get the flavor without the problems with your health. And then more herbs, less salt equal less chronic disease. So if you put them together, that'll help prevent chronic disease. And they can be used year round. Like I said, there's a lot of ways to be able to do that. So it's a good alternative. And I'm going to give you the second poll now and see what everybody thinks about this. Let's see. Okay, so after hearing the conversation about how we cut back on salt by using herbs, I'm asking if you are going to try to use them more. And then the second question is if you'll add them to any other dishes now. I think I had a third one on this. So you can go ahead, the polls are open. You can go ahead and answer those for me, please. Have about 30 seconds left. All right, so that's the end of that one. And I'm going to shut that down. And then I just wanted to follow up with where Jen left off as well and talk to you a little bit about leafy greens. So the benefits of leafy greens, again, this is my garden, the pictures from my garden. It's doing really well. I'm really been so thrilled. I've gotten quite a bit of lettuce out of there, thankfully. And leafy greens are really important because they're high in vitamins A, C, E, and K. So they are good for us in that direction. They also provide iron, magnesium, and calcium, as well as potassium, folate, vitamin B, and they're low in calories. Excuse me. So they have a lot of bulk to them. They can fill us up, but they're very low on the calorie range. So they're a good option for us. very high in fiber, which is important for preventing chronic disease. And they help to prevent chronic disease because it bulks up our stool, so it moves everything around the way it's supposed to, keeps everything healthy. Also, leafy greens control your blood sugar levels, which is an important thing. And it decreases blood cholesterol levels. So again, a lot of positives in the direction of chronic disease if you're eating leafy greens. And then they also contain phytochemicals or phytonutrients. So phytochemicals are what give the color and the nutrients to the plant. And these phytochemicals in these green leafy vegetables help us to maintain our vision. They boost our immune system and they help to reduce disease. And when you're eating leafy greens, you want to try to go for 3 to 5 times a week if you can. You want to eat them often. So they're one of those foods, again, that are going to fill you up and they're going to provide you with a lot of nutrients at the same time. So they're healthy. And one of the things that I do want to caution you on is the salad aspect of eating leafy greens. So that's right. There we go. It's important to keep your salad healthy. And I know a lot of people will eat salads and say, oh, I'm making a good choice. I'm having a salad today. My husband was one day I called on the phone. I said, hey, what are you doing? He says, I'm picking up a salad at the store. And I said, well, turn it over and look at the package labeling. So he looked at the label on this pre-made salad and there was 1,800 milligrams of sodium in that salad. So he thought he was making a really good choice, but in reality, it had a whole lot of sodium in it. So again, if we're eating 1,800 milligrams in one little salad, then we're not really providing a lot of the good that we want out of the salad. So when you get a prepackaged salad, check it out first, make a decision on it, how much you want to do, maybe search around a little bit for what a better option will be according to the label. When you build a salad yourself, try to use all the food groups in it. So, you can make a meal out of it. Try to have a fish as a lean protein or grilled chicken as a lean protein. Try to stay away from the fried chicken on there or the breaded chicken. You can add seeds and nuts, but make sure that they're not candied or heavily salted, because then that could take away from some of the benefits that you're trying to seek from having a nice salad. And try to, you can add some dried fruit or you can add undried fruit, but remember, dried fruit is more sugar concentrated, so be cautious there as well. Cheeses are great and they're covering your dairy group for you, but when you have cheeses, watch the salt level and the fat levels in those. And so really think about what you're building. You can add olives, you can add all kinds of different things and make a great meal out of it with a lot of flavor. And then one thing I really want to caution you on is dressings. So dressings can add a lot of sugar and they can add a lot of fat and sodium to your meal. So check that out before you do it. If you're going to put dressing on it that is a little higher in fat, or even if it's not, try just putting a little bit on the side and dipping your food in it versus piling it all over it and covering it, because a lot of times we pour that out and we don't realize how much is going into it. So just be cautious about that. And then just enjoy your healthy salad. Take a time to, enjoy the flavors of it. And this time of year, we're so fortunate in New Jersey to have so many great things to eat and take advantage of. So, hit up one of your farm markets and try to get some nice healthy food if you don't have it in your own garden. These are my references. And then I just always like to end by pointing out the hard work of our colleague Lenora, who gets together our website and our Facebook pages. She does a wonderful job with the Cape May website, which you can see there at capemay.njaes.rutgers.edu. There she is waving. And our Facebook page. And if you like, if you're interested in more of our talks, whether it's 4-H or A&R, agriculture, or FCHS, just check out the website. We're all posting things up there now. We've been hard at work this whole time during COVID, getting things together and getting things out there. So go ahead and check those out on the website and visit us there if you'd like to see more. I have one final poll, if you guys would be so kind. Let me see if I can do it. Yay. To take this one poll for me. Mm-hmm. This is a short one. This is just about the leafy greens. So I hope you all will start enjoying them healthy. And I'm going to open that poll up. And then if you have any questions for me, just go ahead and put them in the chat and I'll try to answer them for you.
So far, there's just one.
Okay. Have about 40 more seconds for the poll. All right, we're going to close that down. All right, let me stop sharing now. I'll come back. All right, what's our question? Let's say, is table and sea salt the same as kosher salt and Himalaya salt too? Yeah, it's all basically the same. If you're looking at sodium, you know, it's a lot, it's different with the way it's processed, like I said, but sodium wise, the count wise, it's the same all across the board. Anybody else have any questions for me? It's interesting to me when I took if you go online to USDA My Plate, they have a little calculator on there that you can enter your meal in. And I did that one time and I had eaten lunch meat and, you know, it wasn't fatty lunch meat or anything like that. But when you figure out the sodium that is in that alone, it's really a little interesting to figure out how much you're consuming because it's surprising, you know. I try to eat relatively healthy, but it's pretty easy to get that sodium up there. And sodium's hidden in a lot of places, you know, prepackaged sauces and, you know, condiments and things like that. So you want to be cautious about it. And somebody wants me to review how to store frozen herbs. Sure. So what I do personally is I use the ice cube tray. And then once I lay them flat in the ice cube tray in the freezer. And then I take them out once they're frozen and just put them inside a Ziploc bag, zip them off, always label it, put the date on there, and then I pull them out as needed. So it's pretty simple. Like I said, you can make a pesto out of it, or you can, you know, just put them in a little bit of olive oil. I've tried them in water and it kind of burns them. So I haven't done it that way anymore. Anybody else have any? You can try them in water and see how they go. It might have been the way I stored them. I think I might have left them in the container too long and not in the Ziploc. So you could do it that way, and they'll wilt obviously if you do it that way. I'm actually I've been taking a course to become a master preserver, and been getting a lot of great information about doing different types of preserving. And I'm hoping to be able to bring more of that information to talks that I do in the future for Cape May County so that we can have them here. We did do just some general preserving information and the safety of it at the library one time, but I have every intention of continuing to do those because there's a lot of questions around that. And especially people are growing their own foods now and they're preserving their own food. So they're really interested in it. So anybody else have a question for me? Well, Jen and I really, Jen, I'm going to unmute you.
I'm unmuted.
Oh, good. No, now I muted you. Jen's had enough of me today. We really appreciate you all being here. And if you have any questions, you can reach out. And I know that Lenora checks the Facebook. There was some messages on Facebook last time. You can reach us at our email addresses. I know you all have my email address. And we will be doing more talks throughout the summer. And you can look on our website for those. Okay? Thank you all. Have a great night. Stay safe and well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello,
Hi.
Thank you.
Christine.
Yes,
Hi, my name is Peter. I raised my hand. I don't know if you're seeing me or not.
I am
This
seeing
is
you
my.
now. There were so many people on the screen, Peter. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's
It's managing. I'm so used to being in person and managing all these little boxes.
well. I do take up a lot of space, so
It doesn't look it.
can you see me?
I see you. I see from about here up. I see your glasses up. Yes. There
Okay.
you
How about
go.
now?
There I
Okay.
see you.
Okay. So my question is, I have basil plants that I'm growing. If you could take a see them.
Jen, can you? Jen's the basil lady.
Okay. So uh, these were just little babies a week ago, and they're starting to flourish. But I'm getting these little black spots. They're like a bug underneath. Let me see if I don't know if you know about this or not, but when you sent the thing, can you see the bugs under there? The black?
No, I cannot. Are they moving or are they stationary?
No. Let me see here. How about now? Can you see it now?
Not right
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
Probably so.
It looks like
The best thing would be, Peter, if you could pluck a couple of the affected leaves and take some pretty clear photos of them and email them to
okay.
me, and then I
Okay.
can get a better look. You know, and if they're getting full sun all day,
No, they only get maybe 4.5, 5 hours of sun.
so my one concern would be that it might be powdery or the downy mildew. Sometimes it starts off as little black spots underneath, blackish gray spots, and then the whole underside of the leaf will turn gray. And
Okay.
it plants pretty quickly, especially with sweet basil plants if they're not disease resistant variety.
Okay. Um, so I brought them down to McNaughton's yesterday. Can you see me? Yeah, there you go. So I bought them. I bought it. Did I lose you?
Yeah, you're still there.
We can hear you. There's your video. Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay, thanks. So I went to McNaughton's yesterday and I brought the leaf in, and this is what the gentleman had given me to spray. Can you see that?
Control. So, I mean, if they're insects, you know, I'd have to see what kind of insect it is.
Okay. So my email address is peterk900.
I got it, Jen. If you need.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So where do I'll take some photos, send them to you, Christine or Jennifer?
Yeah, you can send them to me, and I'll forward them on to Jen, and then she'll reply to you.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Since you already
Okay, it
We
have,
was
got you
very
covered.
interesting, very interesting program today.
Good. I'm glad you joined us.
Yes, I saw it in the paper today, and I said, "This is perfect timing."
Perfect. Great.
'Cause
Great. Yeah, we had a few people at the last minute. That was good. We had like 45 people register, I think, but we ended up with I think 30 attendees or so.
Nice.
So that's good. Yeah.
Is this a weekly thing?
Not right now, no. We're doing it here and there. We're going to do this again for teaming up together. Jen and I,
Okay.
probably with some seasonal food towards the later summer and then in the fall. We're trying to do a series on that. And but we both talk at separate times. If you visit our website, there's a listing there of when we're talking and what we're doing.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Very good. Yes. Thank you for your information, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night, Peter.
All right, you girls too, okay? Stay safe. God bless.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Anyone? I think you can stop the recording.
Oh, yeah.
You might be able to edit that out at the end.